Welcome back to High Floor Football and to a special mock draft episode. My name is Sam Wagman. I'm your host, and with me, as always, is my co-host Jay Arsht, who has put together his final mock draft for the Huddle Reports mock draft submission contest. And Jay spends all his time on the mock draft, so I'm gonna let him go pick by pick, and we're gonna break down into the mind of Jay Arsh and why he chose all these picks for his first round. So Jay, take it away, my man.
Yeah, I'm excited. I've gone through a lot of different mocks, a lot of different ideas, a lot of variations of this. So, we're finally here on draft night eve and time to, put the pen to paper, I guess, instead of the pencil this time. So here we go. My first pick is, not a big surprise, not a big surprise to anybody. Carolina Panthers picking Bryce Young. He's a strong betting favorite. I think everybody's pretty solidified on that. I'd be surprised if there's anything else. So we got Bryce Young going first. Here's where the fun starts at number 2, the Houston Texans. I've got them taking Will Anderson, the edge out of Alabama. I think that's going to be between him and Tyree Wilson. Seems to be the consensus right now. There are still some people out there, thinking it could be quarterback, but I'm going Will Anderson at 2 to the Houston Texans. At 3, the first trade of the draft, the Seattle Seahawks moving up to pick Anthony Richardson at 3. Interesting that it's an interdivision trade with the Seahawks and the Cardinals, but I think the Cardinals are going to be so desperate at this point that they're going to take whatever they really can to move down a couple spots, get a couple extra draft assets. So the Seahawks jump the Colts and take Anthony Richardson at 3. The Colts at 4, quarterback needy. I think most people are going to have them taking quarterback as well. CJ Stroud going 4th to the Indianapolis Colts. And then the Cardinals come back from their trade at number 5, taking Tyree Wilson, the edge from Texas Tech. So that's the top 5. Going into 6, the Lions would be on the clock here, but the Lions make a trade with the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles move up for Jalen Carter, which is a target that I think we all think the Eagles are, targeting. They're trying to get up and get him. We'll see really where they go. I think the Lions are comfortable moving back right now. They have a good amount of draft capital. They're pretty good roster, so I think they're comfortable moving back. We have the Eagles moving up to 6 and taking Jalen Carter. The Las Vegas Raiders at 7, going the cornerback out of Illinois, Devin Witherspoon. And at 8, this one's tricky. Bijan Robinson really, made the mock drafts tough for a lot of us out there. I think that finding the right spot for him is difficult. Finding the right spot for a running back of his caliber to go in the first round is difficult. I wrestled with this one for a while, and I think it would be uncharacteristic of a team to take a running back this early in 2023, but the Falcons are a little unorthodox. The Falcons have made some more orthodox picks the past couple of years, loading up their offense. They take the running back out of Texas, Bijan Robinson, at 8. At 9, here comes the first offensive lineman off the board. The Chicago Bears take Paris Johnson Jr., the Ohio State tackle. And at 10, the Lions get back on the clock after their trade with the Eagles, and they draft Christian Gonzalez, the cornerback from Oregon. At 11, this is another, I would say, semi-climactic point where, some people think the Titans are going to go quarterback, and they very well could. They're the favorite for some of these quarterbacks. I think they stick with the offensive line, something they need to improve. They stick with Ryan Tannehill for a little bit longer. His contract's a little difficult to get out of. They take Peter Skoronski, the tackle or guard out of Northwestern, and we'll see where he lines up for Tennessee in this scenario. At 12, the Houston Texans take Will Levis, the quarterback from Kentucky. Very controversial, Texans passing on quarterback at 2. So they wait till 12, they stay put, and they still get the quarterback that's somewhere projecting them to take 2nd overall. So the Texans come out with Will Anderson and Will Levis. I'm sure there's going to be some funny puns on that. The Houston Texans taking both Wills there. So they get him 12th. At 13, the Green Bay Packers break a little bit of a trend for their organization here, taking Jackson Smith and Jigba off the clock at 13, off the board at 13, the wide receiver out of Ohio State. At 14, the Patriots taking the edge out of Iowa, Lucas Van Ness, which seems to be a pretty popular pick. I've had it for a couple of weeks. I've had a hard time shaking from it. I do think they're going to go with an edge defender here. So I have the Patriots taking Lucas Van Ness at 14. At 15, the Jets take Darnell Wright, the tackle out of Tennessee. Protect Aaron Rodgers. You just got him there. It's a similar kind of formula to what the Bucks did when they got Tom Brady as well. They ended up taking Tristan Wirfs. Similar range in that draft as well. They need help on the offensive line and, protect the asset that you just traded for. At 16, this is a fit that, I've really liked. I haven't really seen it too often, but I do think Michael Mayer is going to be the first tight end off the board. Sam, I know you're in agreement with that as well. 16 feels like a good spot. I've seen a lot of people saying he's going to go higher than kind of the consensus thought. I think this is a good spot for him. They have, Sam Howell, who they're sticking with, and Jacoby Brissett give them, sort of a safety blanket to work with there at the tight end position. At 17, starting the second half of this draft, I've got Broderick Jones from Georgia, the tackle, going to the Pittsburgh Steelers at 17. They need tackle help. They need secondary help. I think they take Broderick Jones, kind of similar. You just invested in Kenny Pickett last year. Protect the guy with the big tackle. Might take some time to develop, but the Steelers are pretty good at developing talent. At 18, this is a drop. Nolan Smith, people have going in the top 10, some as high as 10 to the Eagles, some at 8 to the Falcons. I've got Nolan Smith dropping a little bit, not for any particular reason. He's a smaller edge, but the Lions end that at 18 here. The Lions come out with a nice haul of Christian Gonzalez and Nolan Smith in the first round. Two guys that, could have both been top 10 picks. They get it 10 and 18. At 19, this is one of my favorite ones. I don't know. I've kind of been locked into this one with Brian Branch, the, corner safety to the Tampa Bay Bucks. I feel like the Bucks should have started a rebuild this offseason. They decided not to, I think, from a lot of the moves that they've made. I think Brian Branch is a guy you can immediately slot in as an impact player. And kind of a Todd Bowles pick. We'll see how long Todd Bowles lasts, but I think that he would love a pick like Brian Branch. The Seattle Seahawks get back on the board at pick 20, taking Miles Murphy, another player that could go a little bit higher, anywhere in between, 10 and the teens down to 20, I think is kind of like essentially the ceiling of as far as he's going to drop. The edge out of Clemson feels like a Seattle type of player to me as well. So, they get Anthony Richardson, they get Miles Murphy. They come out pretty happy with two guys that can help contribute. At 21, we have the second receiver that comes off the board. Low moving costs for Jordan Addison, stays in LA from USC to the Chargers. And, people have said the Chargers need speed. Jordan Addison, with his 40 times, didn't really come out and show that he was the speediest receiver in the draft, but I think he plays a little bit faster than he runs in a straight line. I think he fits in with the Chargers there and can kind of be the predecessor to a Keenan Allen when eventually he moves on. So Jordan Addison to the Chargers at 21. At 22, the Baltimore Ravens are on the clock, and another popular pick. I have seen this one elsewhere, but another one that I feel like I have been doing for a little while, and cornerback's a popular spot for the Ravens, especially with some of the wide receiver help that they've added this offseason already. So I've got Deonte Banks going to the Ravens at 22. At 23, this is kind of an interesting trade for me. I think the Saints typically do move up for a guy that they covet. Deonte Banks goes off the board at 22, and they're seeing the cornerbacks, start to come off. That's the fourth cornerback that's been drafted. And the Saints go and get their guys. So Minnesota actually doesn't have too many picks. Minnesota would be picking at 23. They don't have too much draft capital this year, so I think they'd be comfortable taking that move back. And going to pick 29 to swap with the Saints. So the Saints take Emmanuel Forbes out of Mississippi State, the cornerback. He's been a touchdown machine off the interception, so it makes some plays for the New Orleans Saints. 24, we've got the Jacksonville Jaguars. They're taking, a big guard, which is, kind of from that Andy Reid, Doug Peterson tree in a sense, just going with the trenches there. It's the Eagles type model. Both those guys coached with the Eagles for quite a while. So I think this is a good pick. Again, sort of you bulk up that offensive line with Osiris Torres. They, gotten a chance to scout him down in Florida, so should be comfortable with him. At 25, the New York Football Giants are on the clock, and and if you look at their receiver room, it's full of little guys, man. And so is this draft. This draft is full of little receivers.
Short Kings season.
Short Kings is one way you could say it for sure. I think they want to add, a little bit of size to that. Quentin Johnston's been a controversial prospect for sure. Some people have him dropping out of the first round. At some points, he was, maybe going to be the first receiver off the board. We'll see. But I think he's a good fit for the Giants, similar to, kind of the trend of when you invest in your quarterback, you got to put some guys around him. So that's who they take at 25. At 26, funny enough, you replace a Dalton with a Dalton, which I thought, was kind of just a addition to what was already happening here. But I think the Cowboys getting Dalton Kincaid is a nice pick, the tight end out of Utah. Add a little weapon to that offense. Dalton Schultz left in free agency. I'm not really sold on some of the other guys they have there. And Kincaid's someone who realistically could go higher than this. So I think the Cowboys might have him, as the top player on their board here at a position of need. So it makes sense. At 27, the Buffalo Bills pick Zay Flowers, the wide receiver out of Boston College. Again, a wide receiver that some people might have going a little bit higher, and I'm not necessarily against that. I think that's very possible. But just the way the board fell, I think that he fits great in Buffalo. Buffalo needs to, find some more weapons. They have a loaded offense with Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen, but they need a little bit extra help. Sam, unfortunately, Gabe Davis didn't give them that. So add Zay Flowers in, and, he adds another element. Yep. At 28, another player that fell a little bit further than I think maybe consensus would say, Joey Porter Jr. to the Cincinnati Bengals. They need some secondary help for sure. They added some in last year's draft as well. But Joey Porter Jr. at this spot at 28 becomes, I think, the best player on a lot of people's boards, and then also fills the need for them in the secondary. So I have Joey Porter Jr. to the Cincinnati Bengals at 28. 29 off the trade from New Orleans. The Minnesota Vikings are on the clock, and they pick Hendon Hooker. And Hendon Hooker has been one I've also struggled with. I don't think he should really go in the first round. I'm not a huge fan, but you can't escape literally everybody saying he's going to go in the first round. A lot of people saying he's going to go before the 20th pick. I couldn't get that high on him, but I think Minnesota, like I said, trades back to kind of collect some extra draft capital. I don't know that this is 100% their plan, but Hendon Hooker falls to them, and they get the predecessor to Kirk Cousins, who doesn't look like he's going to be there that much longer. At pick 30, the Philadelphia Eagles. This is a pick I could see the Eagles move off of. I couldn't find the specific team that I thought is going to move up into the first, and so for the purposes of trying to get this pick right, trying to figure it out, I think that if the Eagles do stay put at 30, Jahmyr Gibbs also might be kind of the best player on their board. People love to bring up that Howie Roseman doesn't invest in the running back position, but it's not entirely true. He took Miles Sanders in the second round, and a lot of these running backs do go in the second round these days. The outliers are the Bijan Robinsons and the Saquon Barkleys and the Zeke Elliott's that go in the first. But he did take Miles Sanders in the second a couple of years ago. I've heard rumors that he was trying to trade up and get Christian McCaffrey in 2017 when McCaffrey came out as well. Jahmyr Gibbs has a different sort of skill set. He's not just the average running back, so he'll be able to contribute in a lot of different ways. And the Eagles love to go to the Alabama well. So Jahmyr Gibbs to the Eagles at 30. And then at 31, the last pick of the draft, we have the Kansas City Chiefs taking Anton Harrison, the tackle out of Oklahoma. This is a tough one too, because, there's pretty much, I was, telling Sam this earlier too. I feel like there's, 36, 38 players that we're all kind of saying are going to be in the first round. Like this guy's going to go in the first. This guy's going to go in the first. There's only 31 spots, and it's tough to figure out who's going to fit into those. I really think that the Chiefs are a team that, these are all luxury picks for the Chiefs. They're trying to fill needs for the future, essentially trying to, have backups if players get injured. And tackle's an important spot, especially when you have, the best quarterback in the NFL, Patrick Mahomes. You want to make sure he's protected at all times. So I have them going Anton Harrison here, which again, just kind of a guy who I think has a first round grade for probably a lot of teams from everything that I've heard. He could go a little bit higher in the first as well. So when he's sitting here at 31, it's a pick that I feel like the Chiefs smash. And you see everybody on Twitter, going like, oh, perfect pick for the Chiefs. Like, how'd they get him here? How'd he drop to 31? But again, only 31 players can fit in this first round this year. So that's how it plays out. And, you guys can see it here. It's being screen shared as well. So we've got it all here. It's been a long journey. We're here on draft night eve. Been a lot of variations, a lot of different takes, a lot of information coming from everywhere. And yeah, so What are your thoughts?
Well, I like it. I do like it. You know how I feel. I don't think the Eagles go ahead and take, a guy like Jahmyr Gibbs at 30. I think it's very likely that they trade down there. I do think that a QB needy team, if Hendon Hooker were still on the board, if there's a spot that he goes into the first round, I believe it's at 30. And he goes there. I hope Thor Nystrom does not see this mock, because he told you that if you put Hendon Hooker to the Vikings and they take him, he might self harm.
And I tried so hard not to. This is the only copy.
I may just send this to him. So
we want to have
you
Thor
can get
back on our
draft.
show next year. So let's not send this over to him. Let him find it on his own. Maybe I will post it once it's all finalized. So hopefully he has me muted or something on Twitter.
But yeah, I mean, overall it's a good mock draft, and we're gonna post this on our YouTube channel. And then it'll be entered into the Huddle report. And, hopefully you do well, man. I have all the faith in you. But again, that's all for us here at High Floor Football for tonight's mock draft special. And go enjoy the draft, everybody. We'll see you on the football.